Good morning and welcome to the West Hills Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's virtual Sunday service. We are also affectionately known as WOOF. My name is Sulima Mawson. I use the pronouns she and her. It is my privilege to serve as your worship coordinator this morning, and it is my joy to welcome you all, whoever and wherever you are at this moment. We want you to know that you are welcome here. Whatever your age or abilities, color of your skin or where you were born, whomever you love, or how you identify your gender if you do. Whatever your spiritual practices may be, or if you have none, and whether your heart is overflowing with gratitude and joy, or broken open with grief and pain. We are so grateful to be with you all this morning, all of us together in this virtual, snowy community of conscience, compassion, and celebration. I encourage you to check the announcements in your order of service to see what else is happening this week, and especially to invite you to join us for our virtual coffee hour at 11:30. This is the time that we check in with each other, share our joys and sorrows, and talk about today's service with our guest speaker. Now, if this is your first time with us and you don't have an order of service, but would like to know more about who we are and how we stay connected during this time of social distancing, don't hesitate to get in touch with our congregational administrator through our website, WHUUF.org. Lighting the chalice symbolizes our shared faith and draws us into sacred space, no matter how scattered we may be. If you are lighting a chalice at home right now, let us do it together and consider these words from Katie Kandarian Morris. Here we have come into this sacred space, quieter now with our readiness, hushed voices, hoping, trusting for so many things, for connection, for communion, for inspiration, for information, for communion, for healing, for wholeness, for words, for music, for celebration, and for consolation. Here we have come into this space, bringing all of who we are. Let us be willing, however we are changed. And speak with me now our opening affirmation. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another.
Dear Spirit of love and life, I come before you with an open heart full of pain and confusion and exhaustion. It has been such a difficult week. Many of us lost power and lived in the dark and cold without warm food. More lost their internet and the electronics that we depend on, especially during COVID, for work and school and connection with those we love and the world. Some of us still do not have power or internet. It's been so difficult and hard for many of us and for our neighbors and for our families and for our friends. And our disaster here in Oregon is swirled up with the rest of the country. Nearly all of it, from coast to coast, according to a map in the New York Times, sank into sub-zero temperatures for several days this last week, and 3/4 of the country was covered with snow. This is simply not something that happens. Caused, we are told, by a quavering polar vortex loosened by the warming temperatures. It sounds almost like a myth. The young gods started playing with fossil fuel, and the cold monster of the north broke out of his cage. Then the people of Texas were burning garbage in their backyards to stay warm. The power system failed. The water system failed. Cars and trucks could not move. The food system failed. Meanwhile, in other parts of the US, people experienced rolling blackouts for the first time in their lives. There just wasn't enough energy to hold off all that cold. Learning how fragile the systems are that make our lives function has been devastating. Oh, and then there's the pandemic, where this very week, the US is expected to reach 500,000 deaths, and there are 2.5 million or more deaths worldwide. Spirit of love and life, is it no wonder that we are exhausted from this winter? Give us nourishment, and give us strength, and give us love. Give us the courage and resilience and flexibility to live in this age of climate chaos. Give everyone across the world who is struggling for survival right now the courage, resilience, strength, and hope that they need. Give them bread and shelter and warmth and care. But please, mostly remind us to love. Let us love ourselves fiercely, and remind us to reach out and grasp our neighbor's hand and say, let's help each other. Let's love one another. Let's let love win. Amen.
Today's service is all about opening our doors and our arms to what Wolf's mission statement calls the wider world. The wider world with its beloveds and its unbeloveds alike. It's the part of our mission that leads us to bloom in service. Our guest speaker, Paul Susi, an educator, social services professional, theater artist, and community activist, will take us into neighborhoods and communities that most of us are not familiar with, those of the houseless and the incarcerated. We ask only that you keep your eyes and your hearts open, and that you join us in conversation with Paul at coffee hour 11:30. So let's get started now with our story time for all ages.
Hello, friends. It's so good to be together this morning. Today, I'm excited to share with you a story that has been shared in this space before, but is one of my very favorites, and I think always bears repeating. This is Last Stop on Market Street. CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom. It also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but never saw a straw. From the bus stop, he watched water pool on flower petals, watched rain patter against the windshield of a nearby car. His friend Colby climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" "Boy, what would we need a car for? We got a bus that breathes fire, and old Mr. Dennis who always has a trick for you." The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and sagged, and the doors swung open. "What's that I see?" Mr. Dennis asked. He pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear, placed it in his palm. Nana laughed her deep laugh and pushed CJ along. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tuning a guitar. An old woman with curlers had butterflies in a jar. Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon. She made sure CJ did the same. The bus lurched forward and stopped, lurched forward and stopped. Nana hummed as she knit. "How come we always got to go here after church?" CJ said. "Miguel and Colby never have to go nowhere." "I feel sorry for those boys," she told him. "They'll never get a chance to meet Bobo or the sunglass man. And I hear Trixie got herself a brand new hat." CJ stared out the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched cars zip by on either side, watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. CJ gave up his seat. "How come that man can't see?" "Boy, what do you know about seeing?" Nana told him. "Some people watch the world through their ears." "That's a fact. Their noses, too," the man said, sniffing at the air. "That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am." Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed her deep laugh. Two older boys got on next. CJ watched as they moved on by and stood in back. "Sure wish I had one of those," he said. Nana set down her knitting. "What for? You got the real live thing sitting across from you. Why don't you ask the man if he'll play us a song?" CJ didn't have to. The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. To feel the magic of music, the blind man whispered, I like to close my eyes. Nana closed hers too. So did CJ and the spotted dog. And in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus, out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves, saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full and he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him the feeling of magic. The song ended and CJ opened his eyes. Everyone on the bus clapped, even the boys in the back. Nana glanced at the coin in CJ's palm. CJ dropped it in the man's hat. Last stop on Market Street, Mr. Dennis called. CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. Crumbling sidewalks, broken down doors, graffiti-tagged windows, and boarded-up stores. He reached for his Nana's hand. How come it's always so dirty over here? She smiled and pointed to the sky. Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what is beautiful. CJ saw the perfect rainbow arching over the soup kitchen. He wondered how his Nana always found beautiful where he never even thought to look. He looked all around them again. At the bus, rounding the corner out of sight, at the broken street lamp still lit up bright, at the stray cat shadows moving across the wall. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, I'm glad we came. He thought his Nana might laugh her deep laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, Me too, CJ. Now, come on. I wanted to share this book with you today because I think when we listen to Nana and we stop to notice what is beautiful and we stop to notice the people around us, we can begin to build the beloved community. And friends, we know that the beloved community includes everyone, those among us here at Wolf and those experiencing hardship, those who are unhoused. We know that they too belong in the beloved community, that we are a part of them and they are a part of us. I so look forward to hearing what you find when you try to notice what is beautiful, even in this broken world.
How could anyone ever tell me you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply
Today's reading is a poem titled Flowers by Portland poet Peter Sausman. Peter's work is published in Street Roots, and you can meet him and get signed copies of his poems most any day at the Whole Foods corner of Northwest Cooch and 12th Street here in Portland. You'll also find a link to him and his work, along with the other Street Roots poets, in your order of service announcements. Following the reading, we're going to share a time of extended silence for prayer, meditation, reflection, as may be your tradition. This is a time when you might wish to bring into the circle those who have been unbeloved in your own lives. Flowers by Peter Sausman. The pigeon's scintillating violet crest, the perfectly round and sensitive breast were molded not by nature or by God above, but by drama, passion, need, and love. The symmetries and pretty colors and all the sweet scents of flowers arise from the needs of bushes and trees, for the love of ants and bees, and with their love, the ants and bees paint visions of beauty on the grass and trees. Over billions of generations, 1,000 million mutations, the hungry, needy little insects for intricacy and delicate odor select a beauty we can share, a beauty we can see, a message from 500 million years away that they are just the same as we.
Hello, everybody. My name is Paul Susi. I am an educator, a site supervisor for the outdoor school with the Multnomah Education Service District, where my camp name is Badger. I use he, him pronouns. I've also spent the last 6 years as a shelter manager for Transition Projects, one of the largest social services agencies in Portland. I helped to lead 6 different shelters in 5 years, opening and closing emergency shelters, all in downtown Portland and in Northeast Portland. I'm a Portland native, born and raised. Both of my parents are from the Philippines. I was an angry young man. I didn't go to college. I was really, I had a real temper. I still have a real temper. But what saved my life was Powell's bookstore. I don't know if you could tell from all my friends around me here, and theater. I fell into Shakespeare at just the right time in my puberty and adolescence, and theater, Shakespeare, classical literature, the Western canon, the dead white guys, helped me organize my feelings and my thoughts, and join a deeper and broader community, the Republic of Letters. That humanist ideal is still something that I really believe in. So that's who I am, and that's where I'm from, and I am still an actor in town. I recently toured a production, an adaptation of the Iliad to over 25 different prisons and community centers and religious organizations, including WOOF, in the last 2 years. We also adapted a version of Antigone, Anne Carson's translation of Antigone. We were going to tour that to the same prisons, but of course, COVID happened. So here we all are in this brave new world with technology and things. I've performed regionally and nationally and internationally and locally. As I said, my primary stuff right now is as an educator and as a social services professional. So to begin, I just want to express my gratitude at being invited by Salima and by this intentional and beautiful spiritual community here at West Hills Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. It's really lovely to be back, actually. All month, this community has been contemplating beloved community. And I was asked to speak today to examine how the unloved, the least loved amongst us, fit within that loving ideal. Now, I believe that love, to be truly loving, must be intentional, specific, and truthful. I believe that even the most universal, expansive expressions of love must be grounded in clear intention in order to be at all meaningful. As anyone who's ever been in a long-term relationship knows, it's not necessarily easy to truly love the totality of someone with all of the complexities that you each carry within you. Movies and play books, it look easy and place impossible burdens on us. I draw a distinction between how relatively easy it is to fall in love and how much more complicated it is to love with enduring resilience over time. And as complicated as loving anyone can be, things grow exponentially more complicated when we live in community with one another, albeit socially distant and masked. As already mentioned, most of my adult professional life has been spent serving the unhoused, the homeless, the incarcerated, the marginalized. Succinctly, the unloved and the least loved amongst us all. And those labels, truth be told, are convenient abbreviations for much longer, much more complicated stories. I'm talking about sex offenders, users and abusers of addictive substances. I'm talking about people who have been rejected for their identity, their nationality, for their ethnicity, for their sexuality. The impoverished, who are guilty of not paying a debt or a series of debts. And even those labels that I'm using are just placeholders for much more tangled narratives. As a matter of fact, I've never met anyone whose story neatly fits any of the stereotypes that we're all imagining right now. The stories of loss, of trauma, of survival. These are all always longer and more complicated than can be neatly packaged in a mission statement or a 1-hour episode or an incident report or a tweet. Maybe this is why so many services that are tailored to serve generic categories of people, such as the elderly or the clean and sober or those fleeing sexual abuse, these are all in practice hopelessly inadequate to serve the needs of real people with their complicated and intermingled stories of systemic and intersecting obstacles, traumas, needs. Think of how tangled your own life story is, how you met your partner, how your parent treated you, the person whose love you left behind. Think of the great regrets of your life, all the places that you escaped. Think of all the things you got away with. That's where the great trap is. Every argument and every justification for a reduction of services or a sweep of an encampment, they all hinge on that presumption they're getting away with it, whatever it is, whether it's food stamps or healthcare, housing, a living wage. Every conservative, reactionary, white supremacist argument is based on the fear that someone else is getting away with your hard-earned privilege. I let this guy in. Now I have to let in everybody who comes to my door. I'm not going to give her cash because she's just going to spend it on booze or meth. I worked hard so that I could buy this property, enjoy myself in this park or this bar. I don't want to have to see or hear or smell these people who didn't earn what I've earned. I don't want my tax money paying for their mistakes, their lifestyle. I don't feel safe with them around. I just don't. The problem is that on a person-to-person basis, all of that just boils down to simple cruelty. And it's a cruelty that is based on fear. And you can't reason, you can't debate with fear. I've tried just opening as many shelters as possible. I've tried holding people responsible to higher standards. I've tried raising barriers. I've tried lowering barriers. I've tried trusting intuition, and I've tried trusting data. I've tried working with law enforcement, and I've tried shunning law enforcement entirely. In my time leading shelters, working directly with sex offenders, working directly with adults in custody, I've learned that focusing on not letting them get away with it, no matter who they are or what it is, it's a circuitous and unproductive path. All you do is fear, and then you hate because you fear, and then you hate yourself for the weakness you feel with that fear. And this is why it's always easier to fear than it is to love. Intrinsic to our shared moral culture, such as there is a presumption that you earn what you deserve. If you've been successful in life, it must be because you've earned it. If you're unsuccessful, it must be because that's what you deserve. That person looks like that because of what they've done. This person must be good. Look at how lovely they are. I serve because I think of myself as someone whom this country never wanted to be here. I'm a person of color, obviously, without a college education. I'm the son of immigrants who fled an authoritarian dictatorship without wealth. When my mom got sick and my parents split up, the culture and the social order around me decided not to show me intentional, meaningful love. I experienced firsthand how I checked many of the boxes somewhat, but none of the boxes sufficiently to qualify for more supportive resources and care. I thought, and on my worst days, I still think, that I suffer because I somehow deserve to suffer. I didn't work hard enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't well behaved. I didn't know how to control my temper. I wasn't the mythical model minority. I didn't leave my personal problems at home enough. I wasn't professional enough. All of which is to say, I wasn't safe enough. I wasn't wide enough to satisfy whomever it was that was evaluating me in that moment. It frightens all of us to consider that there is no deeper logic to the American dream than that. Truly, Malcolm X was right when he called this the American nightmare. The fact is, you cannot meaningfully predict how tangled and durable this violent, unfeeling mess of a social order is, and how the ramifications for decisions you made or decisions you didn't make continue to impact you and your loved ones for generations. All of this would be mythic in another context. So what can I or anyone do in the face of such a tangled, complicated, endlessly infinite, and consuming pain? I think you cannot love others unless you are loved yourself. I think that those who use hateful language, who fear others, and hate those who disagree with them, they do not know how to truly love their own selves. The hatefulness, the violence, the inconvenience that we experience from those with less privilege than our own selves is actually a complicated message that you are being given. The message is, I'm in pain, I need help, and I don't have another way to say it. In speaking with you today, my goal is not to convert you to a particular political position or to convince you of anything other than this. Every human being you meet belongs here and is worthy of love. Now, whether to love them and how to express love to them, those are choices that are entirely yours to make. Truly loving a traumatized and hurting human isn't easy. Just this last weekend, I was helping to lead the severe weather shelters at the convention center. And while I was doing that, I was called racial slurs and epithets that I'd never had used against me before. I thought I'd heard it all. Love isn't always kind or easy. At any given moment, you already know what the right thing to do is. I firmly believe that all human beings have a conscience, and that our consciences are remarkably consistent across the infinite diversity of human experiences. I only urge you to listen to that conscience as much as you possibly can. If you want to get involved or if you want to donate, I would urge you to visit the websites for transition projects, for street books, for Sisters of the Road, for the Northwest Classical Theater Collaborative. And if you look up my website, paulsusi.wordpress.com, you can find out how to volunteer to be part of a prison pen pal network that I'm coordinating. Thank you all, and have a good day.
We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free, where the oil of gladness dissolves all mourning. We'll build a promised land that can be. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, filled with the Spirit, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where we bring the good tidings to all to mourn, and we'll give them garlands. Instead of ashes, we'll build a land where peace is born. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, filled with the Spirit, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. We'll build a land where the forests are fertile, where the water and wind run clean and clear, and community matters more than possessions. Come share this land, let's build it right here. Come build a land where sisters and brothers, filled with the Spirit, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. One more time. Oh, come build a land where sisters and brothers, filled with the Spirit, may then create peace, where justice shall roll down like waters, and peace like an ever-flowing stream. And peace like an ever-flowing stream.
This is the time in our service when we pause to reflect on the gifts we have received from our abundant earth and the generous spirit of family and community. Time to consider what it is that we have given and what it is that we are grateful for. During the musical interlude, please consider the gifts that you might have to offer our WOOF community. Whether it be financial support or the very special gift of your time or talent, know that we are grateful for your offering. Each quarter, we select a recipient for our Donate the Basket Sundays. This happens once each month, and today is that day. Friends Stay Warm, an agency founded and managed by WOOF's own affiliated community minister, the Reverend Connie Yost, is our winter quarter recipient. Friends Stay Warm is exactly as it sounds, providing emergency cash assistance for families living in poverty, many of whom are undocumented immigrants. For these families who have already tried to gain assistance through available programs and charities, Friends Stay Warm is their last resort. If you'd like to donate online, follow the instructions that will appear on your screen during the interlude, or label your check, Friends Stay Warm. And let us remember that love is always the currency of beloved community. Remember that we drink from wells we did not dig and are shaded by trees we did not plant. WOOF exists today because of the devotion and dedication of those who came before us, from our founders back in 1955, all the way back to the original stewards of this land. And it will continue to exist because of the devotion and the dedication we bring today. Please join me in our affirmation of gratitude and giving. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others. As we extinguish the chalice, marking the end of our time together today, let us resolve to carry within us the warm glow of its flame and all that it stands for as we make our way through the coming week and all that it may bring. May we be reminded again, the words of the poet Peter Sausman, that we are all part of the same beauty. And may we meet again in a spirit of peace, love, compassion, and good health.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet